Hello and welcome to another edition of WebTalk with me, Elvis Teke, on CRTV Web. On this edition, we are looking at the role of journalists in climate resilience and the protection of the forest. And this is a follow-up to a training session organized by the Research Center for Agroforestry and the International Center for the Protection of the Forest, represented here by its research coordinator, who is our guest on today's program. Hello and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Elvis.
Dr. Abdon Awona is a seasoned researcher who is going to be talking to us today about what message did they transmit to the media men from 11 countries of Central African sub-region who took part in this conference. Sir, let's go straight to business.
We decided to organize a workshop with journalists because, as you know, when we talk about environmental science, it is a very complex area because it is associated with complex concept, scientific concept, and it was an opportunity for us to talk about all those things because we are quite sure that journalists can help us to take the message further and to help us to achieve the impact we are looking for in our project. Science is not only for science. Scientific results should be contributing to the transformation of the society, which means that we need to help to fight against poverty. We need to conserve natural resources successfully. And then we had opportunity to discuss with all the journalists that came from the different countries of Central Africa. And I think the first message is that we should be working together. It is something that cannot only stop here.
Let's look at this report that was prepared to us by Eric Vogoada, our reporter, who was also part of this conference.
Brainstorming pour un accord parfait entre les journalistes et les scientifiques. À l'invitation du CIFOR et CRAF dans le cadre du programme RESAC financé par l'Union européenne, une trentaine de professionnels des médias venus de 11 pays d'Afrique centrale ont été formés à Yaoundé du 26 au 28 août 2025. 3 jours d'activités axées sur la résilience climatique et forestière. Minute by minute, les chercheurs du Centre de recherche forestière international ont déroulé l'essentiel de leurs travaux.
Et pour mieux comprendre cela, il faut d'abord se baser sur la démographie.
D'un échange à un autre, le directeur général adjoint de la Cameroun Radio Television, Emmanuel Wangibé, spécialiste en la matière, a souligné que le traitement de l'information environnementale obéit à un processus. À en croire le professeur François-Marc Modium, directeur de l'École supérieure des sciences et techniques de l'information et de la communication, l'éthique journalistique s'invite dans ce secteur d'activité. Pour joindre la parole aux actes, une visite d'entreprise a permis de mesurer l'importance des produits forestiers non ligneux. Une véritable source d'inspiration pour des articles, des reportages et des documentaires.
Cette sortie pour constater de la valorisation des produits de l'agroforesterie est très importante parce que dans tous nos pays du bassin du Congo, nous avons des produits qui sont issus de la forêt mais qui ne sont pas forcément transformés au bien-être des populations et des communautés. Alors l'intérêt serait pour nous de comprendre le process et peut-être quand on rentrera dans nos pays, c'est une évidence, de mettre aussi en avant la transformation de ces produits non ligneux qui sont très importants.
À y regarder de près, les journalistes et communicateurs se sont engagés à renforcer la collaboration entre la science et les médias.
Et ça nous permet de faire la sensibilisation dans nos entourages, dans nos petits villages, dans les quartiers, par rapport à l'importance des arbres, par rapport à l'importance de l'écologie et la biodiversité.
À l'évidence, tous se sont accordés pour dire que cette session d'échange s'est achevée sur une bonne note.
Besides the classroom work, the journalists we invited were also taken to the field to visit a practical transformation site. What was the purpose of this field visit?
We have the possibility of discussing with people and find out what people can realize based on research. And today we had opportunity to see how people process non-timber forest products. And people were really impressed to see what people can do and the necessity to, let's say, find some means to do better. And I think people were very happy to see that people can process the products they have, which means non-typical forest products, and they can also help people to cure some diseases that we know, like we are talking about diabetes. And for sure, there is a great potential of taking advantage of natural products to process and fight against so many diseases we have in this country and in the sub-region.
Among the experts who are also here is Dr. Richard Sufo, who also shed light on some key statistical values that journalists should take into consideration when decoding scientific data into journalistic reports.
Every time we are producing scientific article, and then we don't have the effect or the impact of this article on the daily life of people living in the forest. And then the research project, that is a project I'm coordinating, is a project funded by the European Union, and then the aim is to strengthen the capacity of Central Africa researcher and to bring the research or the result of the research to the users. So it is not research for research, but research for practice. That's why it's important for us to train people working in the field so that the information that we have in the papers can be traduced into simple words so that people in the field can understand well what we are doing. And since these 3 days, we saw that although those journalists have a very good level of understanding science, I hope that the journalists that were here to share their experience and have some training will go back to their country and have a take-home message that will help them to discuss and to exchange what they learned here, so that they can have a large amount of journalists that will help us to traduce scientific information so that end users and local stakeholders can understand what we are doing and use it in the field to help to manage sustainably the forest and the environment.
Key aspects to take into consideration while reporting on environmental issues is the Deputy Director General of the Cameroon Radio Television, Emmanuel Wongibe, who himself is a seasoned environmental journalist.
As they say in journalism, problems scream in environmental journalism, but solutions whisper. If you don't have the ear, which is keen, you will not hear the whispers. You will only hear the problems. And that weakens your storytelling. Your storytelling is not complete. You must remember that to every environmental phenomenon, there was a before, there was a during, and there's going to be an after. It's by completing your coverage of that wide spectrum that you tell the whole story and you help people to understand and prepare themselves better.
The training of media men on the different techniques and skills to carry out scientific reporting, decoding huge scientific data, and transforming the scientific knowledge for public consumption was what the director of the Advanced School of Mass Communication, Professor Mark Mojom, shared with the reporters from the 11 countries that form the COMIFAC in the Central African sub-region.
L'essentiel pour nous, c'était de leur dire, en matière d'environnement, en matière de foresterie, ou plus simplement de forêt, il y a beaucoup de tentations. Il y a un certain nombre de zones de glissement éthique, de glissement professionnel. Il faut les connaître. Et pour les connaître, il faut d'abord les identifier et savoir qu'en la matière, le sérieux d'un journaliste passe par la qualité des informations qu'il donne. Or, s'il veut donner des informations de qualité, il faut d'abord qu'il passe quand même par des éléments recoupés, par des éléments vérifiés, mais aussi par une certaine distanciation par rapport à la tentation matérielle qui est forte parce que parfois les enjeux financiers sont très importants et donc si l'on y prête garde, on y succombe et puis on ne fait pas le travail pour lequel on est commis en tant qu'institution, en tant que travaillant pour une institution médiatique.
We have heard from the different professionals who were here to share their knowledge with the journalists who came from the different countries. Talk to us. Are you satisfied that at the end of these 3 days, you think that these media men will be able to sufficiently represent the scientists when they transmit scientific data to the general public?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We are very satisfied. What I would like to tell you, Elvis, is that for people living in the forest, you cannot just tell them to stop the activities. We should make sure that our applied research take into consideration their aspiration, their needs, and based on that, we discuss together to think about the future. And it is obvious that when you work with all those people, you find the strategies and the ways things can be improved. Let's take the example of protected areas. You have people living around and they need to continue doing their agriculture. If you refer to the policy, they know, I mean, it is obvious that they define the zoning in such a way that the local community should know where to stop. But if, for instance, they don't have enough space, we need to come up with, let's say, a smart agriculture to have good yields. And based on that, they will have the opportunity not only to have food, but also to go to the market to get more income and to improve their living standard, generally speaking. So doing research is, we cannot be talking about conservation without taking into consideration the needs of people on the ground. Because don't forget, there is a traditional knowledge on how to conserve natural resources, and we can absolutely take advantage of that. We can also talk about medicine. You have traditional medicine. People process non-timber forest products, to cure so many diseases in their area. And they can also take advantage of that to sell those products abroad. So they need support in terms of processing those products. And obviously, the forest will be more important for them. And research will be contributing to improve the conditions of life of people, which is something very key.
Thank you, sir, for being our guest on this edition of the program. We hope to have you again next time.
Thank you so much.
That was the package we put together on this edition of Web Talk with me, Elvis Teke. And our guest was Dr. Abdong Awono, expert in environmental issues and climate change, who has shed light to us on the importance of protecting the forest, because the forest can help us to have medicine, food, and also increase revenue. Stay tuned to our channel, like, share, and subscribe.